estrogen is a foundational pillar of a happy, strong, and connected marriage. Estrogen isn't just a reproductive hormone. It is a primary neuroregulatory hormone in the female brain. And if we know the power of this neuroregulation, then we should give women plenty of estrogen so that their brains will work properly. Estrogen directly enhances and modulates key neurotransmitters required for emotional connection and relational health. Welcome to the MeNoPause Moxie podcast, where we strategically challenge the status quo on perimenopause, menopause, and female hormone balancing. I'm clinical hormone coach Marie Hoäg, here with my co-host and producer Maggie Kuhn. So in advanced female hormone medicine, we see patterns in how women change as estrogen declines, and patterns in what happens when estrogen is fully restored. As estrogen drops, women lose themselves and often lose their desire to participate in their lives, including their marriages. When estrogen is restored, their marriage either heals and flourishes, or women get the strength and clarity needed to leave an unhealthy situation. This is not coincidence. This is estrogen's influence on the female brain, mood, and behavior. Hello, Maggie, and thanks for joining me today.
So, Marie, let's start with the foundation, like we always do. When estrogen declines, how does that actually change a woman emotionally, behaviorally, and relationship-wise?
Well, I have to tell you that estrogen deficiency fundamentally changes women at their core. It changes their personality. It changes who they are. It changes how they feel every day. It changes how they respond to situations. It changes how they show up for things. So it really changes who a woman knows herself to be and how other people know her to be. And it manifests itself in nearly every aspect of a woman's life. Women can lose their emotional regulation, where they can't control their moods and their behaviors. They lose their patience. They lose their empathy. They lose their libido. They don't like to be touched, like not just by their significant other, but by their own children and other people they love. In fact, some women can just feel people coming towards them who want to show affection. And when they sense that, they try to get out of the situation. That's how much they don't like to be touched. And the lower estrogen gets, the worse this is. So it turns a woman into somebody that's just really not recognizable, not to herself, and certainly not to the person who married her for the woman she was at the time. So women can't really contribute to a marriage when they're in this state. It's very difficult to expect women to be who they are and who they were when they were younger, when they had estrogen, when they live their life later on without estrogen. So it's not really a personality thing, Maggie, or aging or attitude. It really is a biological issue that we should be looking at first and foremost.
Well, I mean, this is pretty huge, Marie. And because it's usually brushed off as menopause symptoms or sudden emotional instability. And worse yet, it can be diagnosed as mental illness.
I find these to be very irritating. One, you know how I feel about menopausal symptoms. Right. Menopause doesn't have symptoms. Menopause is a symptom. One of the gaslighting techniques women are given is, oh, well, this is what happens in menopause. It's one of the symptoms. So then women buy that whole package of, oh, it's menopause. It's expected. Not only are women expected to adapt to it, but the family is supposed to adapt to this. And it just changes a family dynamic. But the other thing is, I'm very passionate about is the symptoms that women experience during this time period that impact a woman's ability to maintain a healthy relationship is women being diagnosed with mental illness. And I know that we'll talk about this a little later on, but that's just a horrible thing because women already feel horrible as it is. And then they're misdiagnosed with a mental illness. And then they really think, okay, well, then why even bother? just why. So it's like women need to understand, not only women, but doctors and women need to understand that menopause is not a life stage. It is a treatable estrogen deficiency state. And as long as we continue to look at menopause as an inevitable life stage, then women will continue to suffer and families will continue to suffer. Marriages will continue to suffer. It has a trickle down effect. It is the economics of menopause.
Hmm.
So no woman at any age can feel good or like herself when she feels completely disconnected.
But women are told that, well, menopause is a stressful time of life. It's a phase of life and something that needs to be endured. I'm hearing something completely different. Why is that frame, this is just a phase of life and to be endured? Why is that frame not helpful?
Oh, it's helpful, Maggie. It's helpful to the pharmaceutical industry, to the medical establishment. As long as women are under the impression that they are helpless against menopause and the suffering of menopause, and that they can be sold treatments and care and new FDA approved drugs, then you can see the business of menopause and all of this. And it like I said, this isn't just about a woman. It is about her husband, her family, her children. So the implications of this go far beyond the woman and the marriage, because estrogen deficiency really does remove the biological capacity for emotional connection. And when you remove the emotional connection of women, then you have a woman and family who's falling apart. Because menopause does not exist in women who maintain plenty of estrogen levels. And Maggie, it is, as you know, it is really that simple. It's not necessarily terribly simple to get there, but it's simple in the concept that if we treat menopause as the estrogen deficiency disease that it is and fully restore hormones for women, then this changes the entire divorce, marriage, relationship dynamic for women. And so we have to approach menopause as the estrogen deficiency state, because this is how women will be able to control nearly every aspect of their life. What really blows my mind is I occasionally I'll listen in to some of these relationship gurus who are giving advice to couples and talking about negotiating sex in a marriage, and that if a woman only wants to have it once a month and the guy wants to have it 10 times a week, and then you try to negotiate in a time that everybody can agree with, and that's a part of the negotiation of a relationship. And I was like, wait, what? So you want a woman to have sex with a man she finds absolutely repulsive, and the thought of just the touch of him will make the hair on the back of a woman's neck stand up. That's what I have to do. I have to sacrifice this in my life to maintain, because this is how women look at their husbands when they're estrogen deficient. It's like they find them repulsive. Not only do they find them repulsive, as estrogen declines, it gets lower and lower. Women actually wish for their husband's death. I can't tell you how many women have told me shamefully, telling me, it's like, oh my gosh, I had a dream that I killed my husband in his sleep. And the worst part wasn't killing him, it was the fact that I liked it. And they feel horrible about that. This man that they adored and loved and planned on building a life with. And so, yes, we're expecting women to make decisions on their life based off of a state of complete deficiency. So their brain isn't working, their body isn't working. It's one of the reasons our entire society and our medical system has to look at estrogen deficiency really as one of the biggest problems women face in medicine, is because it impacts not only the woman, but the family unit and relationships. And that's so important in living a meaningful life. Based off of years of working with women, they're happier when they're contented with their husband. They're happier when they have connections with their husband, when connections with their children. I mean, when all is good with the connections with their husband and their children, women can pretty much handle just about anything.
In other episodes, we have talked about this concept of the difficult woman. And we know that can often be related to estrogen deficiency. And I think it's really important to say this very plainly. Can you speak to that? Why is it important to say this very plainly?
Well, I think it goes along the lines of you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And it's not a judgment call. I think women know they're difficult. Husbands know it, children know it. Everybody knows women can be difficult. It's not something that women are proud of. But it's not a judgment. It's an actual factual hormonal issue. And if we don't address how difficult women are, we can't get to the root of the cause. We can't get to the root of the problem. So, and it's a sensitive topic because women don't like being difficult. They try not to be, and they can't help it, believe it or not, especially in the luteal phase of their cycle. Women in the luteal phase of their cycle can act in ways that they don't in the follicular phase, such as it's very easy for women estrogen deficient to go into a rage in the luteal phase, just snap into a rage for no reason whatsoever. Women can be easily triggered. They're just intolerant to things. They're irritable. They're emotionally flat. They don't want to engage. They withdraw from activities and they react to everything, not in a proportionate way, in a very out of proportionate way. And so estrogen deficient women are not really capable of showing up as a healthy partner in a relationship. So again, how are we expecting women to participate in a healthy way and contribute to a healthy relationship if they're not healthy themselves? You know, they can't cope. They can't rationalize. They certainly don't negotiate, and they certainly don't. They just don't feel good, and they don't really want to be involved. And that's typically the pattern of behavior when women maintain low estrogen levels. And so people tend to tiptoe around this concept of, oh, she's a Karen or she's difficult. We can't say anything because we don't want to trigger her. Well, she doesn't want to be triggered either, believe it or not. Women do not act like Karens, and they don't act difficult because they enjoy it. They don't enjoy it. And it comes with a lot of shame. You know, when women are having these emotional outbursts in their luteal phase, they don't like it, even though they may be good at it. But let me tell you something, come a few days later, when they start to get some more estrogen on board and estrogen creeps in and they start to feel good, and now their brain is working again, and they look back on their behavior 2 weeks ago and they're like, what the, you know, and now they're trying to make up for all the damage they caused because of this. Now, this happens in women who are estrogen deficient. This doesn't happen in women. Women are emotionally stable when they have enough estrogen. And so if a woman wants to know, oh, am I having these things? Or how do I know this is me? Well, PMS is the big indicator. If a woman has PMS, then chances are she's estrogen deficient and she's experiencing these things. But it isn't about blaming women. It's about recognizing what estrogen deficiency does to the female brain and body. And we can, if we recognize what estrogen does for the female brain and body, then now we can do something about it. But if we address it as, oh, well, estrogen doesn't really impact menopause, or we treat this as something to continuously, you know, drug up, then women and families will always suffer.
Well, building off of that, a lot of women feel deeply anxious during menopause because of their behavior and because of maybe their lack of libido, and they're aware that something's not right, and they start to have a fear that their husbands might leave them over this. You know, is that fear valid? And where is that fear coming from?
Oh, yes, that fear is valid. It's very valid. There is so much going on at this time. Women fear their marriage because they know they've behaved their way into this fear. They know that because of their behavior, that they see signs in their significant other that they're really at the end of the rope with tolerating this irrational behavior that really only estrogen deficiency allows a woman. So this fear, it's almost like a cluster of fears, a fear of losing the significant other, a fear of losing the job because my brain is falling apart and I can't get along with my coworkers any longer. They're so irritating and I mean, it's just women are also having this problem. In addition to, it's like, who are these children? They irritate me. How can I get rid of them? And then they realize that this is not what I thought motherhood was. So there's this fear of this emotional detachment that they witness their mother having, and they have this fear that they're turning into the same thing. And so with this cluster of fears, it really exacerbates this one on the marriage. It puts so much pressure because a lot of women are under the impression that once that divorce happens, then it is like a house of cards. And it is just, it's such a painful thing. And I have to tell you something. I get a lot of women who get to this point in their life who are now sipping the sauce because they can't cope. Because when they come to the realization that everything is falling apart and they know how difficult they are, but not only that, there's nobody helping them. They're going to hormone doctors and they're getting shelled out low dose HRT and psychotropic drugs, and they still feel, well, they feel, they still feel just as miserable, but they're just shells of women. They don't even care how bad they feel any longer. So it's just, um, women don't blame their husbands for pulling away and wanting to leave. And that's what ends up happening. And then many women say, well, I don't blame him for wanting to leave. At least he gets to. I would leave me too. And there's just so much shame with this. And it creates this chronic anxiety that acts on this exercise wheel of fear, anxiety, behavioral issues, mood swings, irrational ruminating thoughts. It's just, and then some women will stay in these relationships because they are afraid of being alone. And especially women with low estrogen, they just really don't have the capacity to live on their own like a woman with estrogen. So they blame themselves, and what they should be blaming in all of this, the blame should be put on estrogen deficiency, on hypoestrogenism. Because as you know, Maggie, women with plenty of estrogen just don't have these experiences, or certainly not to this degree.
Yeah. You know, Marie, this actually makes me feel kind of sad because I think this is a situation that's playing out in every household of married couples of a certain age and stage in life. And, you know, there's really something that can be done about it. And something that's occurring to me is that, you know, certainly there are the women that are afraid they're going to lose their marriages, and because they're aware of their behavior and how it's impacting things. And then there's sort of the flip side of women who are absolutely blindsided when their husband says, I'm leaving, because these women have been so caught up in their anger and their mood swings and all that. They haven't really seen how this is tearing things apart. And so that's you know, that leads women to all of a sudden question their worth. And so you can't win any way about this when you are estrogen deficient.
No, women do get blindsided by their husbands leaving. And that reminds me of one time I attended a conference or a lecture where Suzanne Summers was speaking. And she was talking about how some men are so wonderful with sticking it out with their woman as they go through perimenopause and menopause, and they try to be a support source. But the thing that she said that stood out to me was a husband can only tolerate so much. And it doesn't matter how much he loves you. There's just a limit, and he will leave, especially if you chose a good guy, because he's not going to stick around and deal with the abuse that comes from luteal phase, low estrogen. Women can be very abusive, and they can be very volatile. They can be verbally abusive, and it really can break a man down. They can be physically violent. I mean, I've heard many husbands say, my wife just beats me up. What am I supposed to do when she's PMSing and she's just ripping me to pieces? I can only keep her at bay for so long. And then when I leave, she's yelling at me. I mean, this is a tough place for a husband to be. I mean, how much is he supposed to tolerate? There has to be a place where women take responsibility for this behavior. Women are not doomed to this. Women can control this, but we can't continue blaming men or blaming other things. but the whole on the other side of this too, Maggie, is women are going to get help and they're not getting the help they need.
Yeah, I
Doctors are
mean,
not trained on therapeutic dose protocols. And it's actually like a dirty trick. When women realize that the way that they're living their life is based off of their estrogen levels, and then they go to get on some good hormones, they're given patch therapy, and then they feel good in the beginning, and it's like, oh my gosh, finally I can save my marriage, my relationships, I feel good again. And then all of a sudden within 3 to 6 months that peters out,
yeah, the
and then
rug gets
women are
pulled
bad.
out.
Yes, they get a little tiny taste of that low dose HRT, but because their brains and bodies require so much more of these than what these protocols yield, then they get into another panic. So then they're like, oh my gosh, and my doctor says I'm on HRT and now it's not working for me. And now there's a whole nother level of, see, I've tried everything and nothing is going to help me. And makes me sad because estrogen deficiency erodes self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence. And women have a hard time pulling themselves up by their bootstraps without estrogen. And they try harder and harder, and they feel like that they fall flatter and flatter on their hind end, and they don't know what to do. So women are actually scurrying around trying to figure out, how can I save my marriage? How can I save my job? How can I save my children? How can I save my entire family unit and myself?
Well, often what the diagnosis here is mental illness. And so women are given psychotropics, which might help with some of the volatility or the flatness or whatever. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, there's a large number of women that's being diagnosed with hormone deficiency induced mental illness. It is a thing. And so, what I call hormone deficiency induced mental illness is when psychiatric symptoms are driven by estrogen deprivation, not a primary psychiatric disease. And this is why I push and advocate for restoring estrogen as first line therapy for any menstruating woman. I mean, there is no reason to address anything else in a woman until hormones, especially estrogen, is fully restored. Estrogen deficient women are often misdiagnosed with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorders, when in reality, their brain is starving for estrogen. So instead of getting estrogen, they're shelled out psychotropic drugs, which, as you know, changes who the women are, turns them into a shell of a woman. And I went down this path for a while because I thought that this was the only way to go. It's like, well, at least I'm not crazy, but I really don't know who I am. I'm just getting through my day. And for a long time, that didn't bother me because I thought that was my only hope for survival. At least I wasn't thinking about killing myself every day. But I had no idea what was on the other side. I had no idea what life was like with estrogen. And that's why I do what I do, because women become numb and flat and completely disconnected and a shell of who they are when they're put on these psychotropic drugs. And it really deepens this marital disconnection, and where the wedge gets larger and larger. So the core problem, estrogen deficiency, remains untreated.
Well, and then a further wedge in this situation often is libido or lack thereof. So let's talk about libido, because of course it's huge in marriages. What have you seen in women's libidos when they are estrogen starved?
Well, as you know, Maggie, our estrogen levels, our blood serum estrogen levels, tells our brain what stage of our reproductive lifespan we are. And there's 10 stages. There is a certain range that tells a woman she's in her reproductive prime. When hormones, estrogen is maintained in this range, the body and brain naturally try to prepare for reproduction. This includes a healthy libido, a good pheromonal exchange. The higher estrogen is, the stronger the pheromonal exchange to the opposite level of testosterone. The body prepares itself for reproduction. The body shape, women get curvier, they get boobs, they get a flat belly, they get curves, they have pretty hair, pretty skin, pretty nails. The body is preparing for the state of reproduction. And so what happens when estrogen declines, and it gets lower and lower and lower, so do these features of reproduction. And so one of the first things that decline when estrogen declines is that of the libido. So a woman is either in her reproductive prime or she is in a state of aging and survival to prepare for death. So when a woman crosses that line with estrogen, when estrogen gets low enough that triggers the brain to say, hey, I'm no longer in my reproductive prime, now I need to store fat differently and gain and hold on to fat differently because I'm in a state of survival now. I shouldn't have a libido because my job now isn't to have children. I shouldn't have a sexual desire. I shouldn't have a sexual response. I shouldn't have nipple clitoral stimulation. I shouldn't have a moist vagina. I shouldn't have a sexual response. I shouldn't have, because the estrogen levels are telling the brain that you're out of business, honey. So when estrogen declines, we can't expect women to have a libido. It is just biologically designed to not happen. We have to look at the biology and the science and the human instinctual primal aspect of women. Why are
Well,
we
there's,
expecting
go
why
ahead.
are we expecting women to have a libido when their brains are wired to not due to estrogen signaling?
Well, and this raises such an important piece within this, which is a woman may assume that she's just not that interested in her husband anymore. Or the husband may also take the loss of libido as, well, she's not interested in me. And, that of course is death to a marriage. And, those things either happen kind of silently and are not talked about, or they might end up being argued over. But either way, it creates an extraordinary amount of tension in most marriages. And can we also just talk about the fact that at the same time that women's estrogen is lowering, something's happening for men as well, right?
Oh, very much so. A marriage breaking down isn't just about a woman's estrogen decline, because men too will have their own hormonal decline. And this is a real problem that many people don't even look at in marriage. It's all blamed. Oh, she's being a Karen. She's difficult. I'm leaving her because of her. And of course, because a woman knows how outrageous her behavior has been, she doesn't blame them and she takes that blame. And it actually foreshadows what the husband has been contributing to the relationship and the demise of all this.
So we're going to talk a little bit later in the episode further about this topic of testosterone dropping in men at around the same time that it's estrogen is dropping in women. But right now, Marie, I want to just talk a little bit further about estrogen's role for women in unhealthy relationships. We've been talking about healthy relationships where things break down because of estrogen deficiency, and it can lead to lots of arguments or stalemates or even divorce. But there's also a situation where estrogen deficient women often stay trapped in bad relationships. Can you explain what that's about?
Yes, it's a real situation that women experience. When I have a consultation or when we have discovery sessions with potential patients, we take an assessment of where the patient is or where the woman is in her life with her relationships, with her diet, her lifestyle, how much weight she needs to lose. If she's on the brink of a divorce, it's not a good idea to move forward with hormone therapy, mostly because of the stress that it involves. So we take a look at this. What I find when I get to this point of the consultation, I notice that women will stay in these relationships that they don't want to be in. And the patterns of behavior we see clinically with women is that estrogen deficiency. So some of the things that we see clinically is that estrogen is really required for emotional strength, for self-esteem, for self-confidence, for self-reliance and self-dependency. So when women are low in estrogen, they don't have the things that are needed to feel strong and to leave an unhealthy relationship. So when estrogen declines, women tend to lose this emotional autonomy. So estrogen deficient women tend to feel weaker. They feel smaller. They feel incapable of standing alone, and they tend to acquiesce to irrational behavior from their most likely testosterone deficient partner. And so them staying really is not a moral failure, it's more of a hormonal one, because you cannot expect independence from a woman whose estrogen is completely depleted. And when I tell women, because I've done this, I've coached thousands of women, that I understand when I see them in this broken place and they've heard me on podcasts or they've heard me or read, and they see, okay, I need to get this divorce, but I know I need estrogen to help me with it. So yes, estrogen actually restores a woman's ability to leave. So a woman without estrogen is much different than a woman with estrogen. So women with plenty of estrogen actually now have a choice to stay or go, mostly because of the self-confidence and the self-esteem and the self-reliance women get from estrogen. There is an inner strength that women get with estrogen that is just unequal to anything else on the planet. I mean, just there's nothing like it. And I think that the more women understand that they've been underdosed and they realize just how much estrogen they need, and they get a taste of it and they realize, oh my gosh, this is the juice of life. It allows women to make confident, rational decisions for herself. And also, Maggie, you know, when women get restored estrogen, what's nice when they go through this process, when they go through their divorce, they're more stable. And the divorce is much more successful with turning out like they'd like to, because of the emotional stability and the strength. And I've walked many, many women through divorces as we're going through this program, and everyone will tell you, I couldn't have done this without estrogen. Estrogen gave me strength like I've never had before. And now I feel like I can do anything. That's a quote from, I mean, many women say the same thing, but women can actually choose. When they have estrogen now, they can make a rational choice to stay or go. Is this a healthy relationship? Do I worth, now that I feel whole and that I feel like I can contribute, is this relationship, this marriage worth salvaging? Or is it so unhealthy, and like, who's this guy I married, and you're so broken, and I can't flourish and grow with you here, with you around me? Like, it's a problem. And so women are like, okay, well, let's put this into perspective. I married you when I was estrogen deficient. My needs were different. I was a broken little girl then. I'm not now. So my need for this relationship is just so off base, because women don't identify themselves as broken any longer. And then when they're in this broken relationship with a broken man, they're like, and now they're making rational plans and a path to get out. That's rational for them and the children, if there's children involved. If a woman is contemplating divorce, I mean, it's one, you're going to need estrogen to do so. But if you get estrogen on board, you may not need one.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that there's sort of two sides to the story here. One side is that an estrogen deficient woman may find her marriage falling apart because she is no longer the confident, playful, sexy, interested in her husband woman that she was. And she knows it and her husband knows it. Or the flip side could be that she's in a bad marriage she's estrogen deficient and doesn't have the strength to leave it. So restoring estrogen is good news either way, because if it's in a marriage that you want to save, that you want to be in, and it's just a matter of your hormones are depleted, refurbishing the estrogen is going to restore the marriage and the things that make a marriage a marriage. And if you're in a bad relationship and don't have the strength to leave because you're estrogen deficient, if you get that replenished, you're going to find the strength you need to do what you need to do. So there's good news either way.
When women's moods get stabilized, it just changes everything. So once women start on a therapeutic dose estrogen, it changes a woman, like I said, within minutes to hours. The brain is responding so much that usually by the end of a 24-hour period of a woman's first injection, it's like there's something there's something going on, because there's a sense of calm that a woman is not used to. And she's used to responding and feeling certain ways, and she's not for the first time. And she doesn't know if it's just something that's in her head or she's imagining, or if it's consistent. And so there's this kind of like, oh, what's happening? So what happens is she starts to desire to be around other people, which is new for her. So that's something that's like, okay, I feel good. And I actually want to go play a game with my kids. And then I want to go hang out with my husband while we're going to go on a walk after supper instead of sitting in our easy chairs watching the news. So, and then what happens is women start to find themselves laughing. I remember when I had a guttural laugh after I started a third generation HRT system, and I was like, oh my gosh, like when was the last time I did that? Like it stood out to me, like I actually had a guttural laugh and I felt joy, and it wasn't fleeting. So women will have a sense of laughter and even giddiness. Like I was telling you, I mean, many times it's like when I started estrogen, I had this overall sense of, I just loved being a girl. And there was a sense of giddiness that I felt that felt lighthearted and, just kind of high spirited and a place of ease where I just felt comfortable in my own skin. And there's this organic energy that improves in women, in addition, for her desire to be touched, to be hugged, to be touched and stroked and loved on and kissed. And it's just not in a needy way, but in a way that it's taken in. And women without estrogen don't experience these things. And they start to feel, for some women, they'll say, oh, this is how I thought I should feel like in my life, like who I thought I was, but I wasn't experiencing who I thought I was. So now there's more of a connection between who a woman really is in terms of her spiritual being and who she is as a person. Now her physical behaviors and moods and her interactions with people. I mean, really, there is not enough time. Maggie, there isn't enough time in a day to talk about all the areas that estrogen impacts a woman. So when estrogen is restored, so is a woman, whether you've met her or not.
Mm. Given what we're discussing here, estrogen's impact on the totality of who a woman is, and then the follow on, the trickle down, as you said, impact of that on all of her relationships and work and everything else. But primarily today, what we're talking about is marriage. I'm just sort of shocked that this isn't better understood or known by people in the therapy community, especially like marital counselors or therapists, couples therapists. I mean, I'm sure, people still have their issues that they need to work through. Couples do. Mm-hmm. But it's like the mental illness thing. It's like, okay, well, let's fill up the estrogen tank. And in a minute, we're going to talk about men and testosterone. But, let's fill up the hormones first and then see what there's left to work with.
Oh, yes, Maggie, you're so right with that. Estrogen is a foundational pillar of a happy, strong, and connected marriage. Estrogen isn't just a reproductive hormone. It is a primary neuroregulatory hormone in the female brain. And if we know the power of this neuroregulation, then we should give women plenty of estrogen so that their brains will work properly. Estrogen directly enhances and modulates key neurotransmitters required for emotional connection and relational health, such as dopamine. Estrogen enhances dopamine signaling, and it drives motivation, pleasure, reward, and desire, including sexual desire and emotional engagement. Serotonin. Estrogen increases serotonin availability and receptor sensitivity, supporting mood stability, emotional resilience, patience, and peace and calm, contentment. Norepinephrine. Estrogen supports alertness, focus, energy, stress tolerance, allowing women to stay engaged instead of overwhelmed. And oxytocin. Through estrogen's influence on the nervous system, bonding, trust, and emotional closeness are restored. So without estrogen, these systems downregulate, leaving women emotionally flat, irritable, disconnected, unable to bond, and real Karens to live with. So when estrogen is deficient, basically marriages lose warmth, softness, pleasure, and emotional safety. Communication deteriorates, not because women don't care, but because the neurochemistry required for connection is just absent. We cannot require women to behave in ways that they're just not able to do. So you cannot evaluate a woman's emotional capacity, libido, or relational engagement without adequate estrogen on board. Nor can you build or sustain a healthy marriage on suppressed neurotransmission.
I mean, essentially, when a woman's estrogen is restored, you're not just changing symptoms, you're restoring the brain chemistry required for connection, which is required for a healthy and happy marriage.
Yeah, very much so, Maggie. And so this is why I don't think women should consider getting a divorce until they get enough estrogen on board. I mean, really, because you can't make big decisions. It doesn't matter whether it's buying a house or moving across the country or landing a new job or something like that. It's difficult to make these rational decisions without estrogen. I mean, estrogen is not optional. It is really foundational biology.
You've been very clear that estrogen doesn't cause divorce. It restores clarity. Can you explain that a little bit further?
That's one of the beauties of estrogen is the clarity that women get. They get clear on why they were depressed. They get clear on why their marriage is failing. They get clear on why they're underperforming in their job. They get clear on why they're disconnected with their children. Estrogen deficiency also strips women of identity and self-trust. A woman without estrogen can't depend on herself, and that impedes a woman's self-trust and self-reliance. So restoration actually restores the truth in a woman's life. Truth meaning a woman can be who she truly is and not constantly try to hide just how depressed she is or how bad and pretend like her behaviors aren't outrageous. When women get enough estrogen on board, their relationships often heal because they've healed and they've changed so much that their interactions with people are now different. And this happened with my children when I started estrogen. I didn't tell my children when I started on a 3rd-generation protocol. And my children noticed my behavior and how different it was, that I wasn't reacting the same way. They were watching me, okay, you're not freaking out, or you're doing this, and why are you so nice, and why are you hugging me? And they just don't understand what's going on. And I'm like, I've got estrogen on board. I mean, so much so that I had to sit them down and tell them what was going on because they thought something was wrong with me. Like, why are you happy all the time? And when is this going to end? And so it restores who a woman is. And when a woman feels happy and that she feels good about herself, every relationship she has is restored, or she gets out of unhealthy relationships. And this gives women clarity on their life. Clarity, is this what I want to do with my life? Is this the marriage I want to be in? Is this the mom I want to be? Is this the woman I want to be? Not only that she just now has the confidence and the ability to create the life that she's always wanted, where before she was just trapped in this estrogen deficiency nightmare that she couldn't get out of, that I called the glass coffin.
So I can definitely see, and understand, of course, why a woman should pay close attention to her estrogen and her hormones overall. But she's not the only one who should pay attention to her hormonal status. Marie, if a husband or a partner is listening right now and doesn't recognize his wife anymore, what do you want him to understand?
I have to tell you, it is so important for the husband to understand what's going on with his wife with estrogen. It is so critical to the success of a marriage that men cannot remain ignorant on this topic. And it's why one of the coaching sessions in our programs includes a husband's hormone coaching program for their wife. I get into detail on what's going on with their wife, why they've been feeling the way that they've been feeling, why they've been behaving the way that they've been behaving because of hormones. I give them a little thumbnail sketch on it, because what I tell them is what you're seeing in your wife is not a personality change. She's not rejecting you, and it's not like she doesn't love you. There's something going on with her brain and body that's causing her to feel these things that have pretty much nothing to do, not absolutely, but virtually nothing to do with you. So, and I explained to them, really, estrogen is a woman's primary main sex hormone. And so, men, if you're listening, there's a reason your wife talks about perimenopause and menopause and the symptoms associated with it. It's because she feels horrible. Pay attention to this, because she doesn't have to feel this way. Because when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And I think we all understand that whole concept. So if you want a peaceful, happy household, I highly recommend understanding estrogen, because your wife's moods and behavior and her desire to want to be with you and love you and to be touched by you is influenced by her estrogen levels, her blood serum estrogen levels. Because as her estrogen declines, her brain chemistry will change, and you will get a different woman than what you married if you married an estrogen sound woman, a woman with plenty of estrogen. And when estrogen declines in women, her feelings towards you will change, and she can come to learn to hate you. And you don't want to be hated by Karen. You don't want to live with Karen. You don't want to be associated. You want a woman that loves you and who will support you and who will want to be touched and who will want to connect with you and who will want to connect with your children and to be the mother that you know that she's fully capable of. So women without estrogen, they become irritable and withdrawn and anxious and emotionally flat. And so arguing with her, minimizing her symptoms, or telling her to try harder or eat less, or it just makes things worse. It's not helpful. So she cannot feel good or connected or affectionate or emotionally available when she's estrogen deficient. But this is good news to understand this, because expecting her to function normally without estrogen is just absolutely ridiculous. And now that's on you. So encourage her to get her hormones fully restored. When she talks about what are we eating for supper, make it a healthy suggestion. Help her and support her in getting her hormones balanced. And part of that hormone balancing is, what are you guys eating? If she tells you you're now eating a farm to table diet, don't argue with her. Tell her how good the meal is and just eat it. The most supportive thing that you can do to help your wife is to help her get good hormone therapy. There's a difference in hormone replacement therapy. And if you want to know what these are, you can listen to episode 6, where I break down the 4 generations of HRT. Because your wife may be on HRT right now, and you're like, well, my wife's already on hormones and she's still difficult to live with. It's because she's underdosed. She's probably on a 1st or 2nd generation HRT designed specifically to keep your wife estrogen deficient. And with this low dose HRT, she's probably on psychotropic drugs and other medications to manage the symptoms she still has. So if you want your wife to be happy, make sure that her empty hormone tank is fully restored to the brim. When men do this, most men will say, oh my gosh, I got my wife back. Oh, I had no idea how loving my wife was. Some men have never really experienced their wife with plenty of estrogen. It's actually quite crazy. It's like, oh my gosh, she's better than she was when I first met her. So if you want your wife back, make sure she gets on the right hormone replacement therapy with the right people who know what they're doing. If you want to save your marriage, that's actually the first place to start, is get your wife hormonally balanced.
Well, Marie, as we have touched on a couple of times already in this episode, women aren't the only ones whose hormones are declining and do decline over the span of a lifetime. And men's do as well. So I'm sure we can all envision how this could be a recipe for marital disaster. A woman's hormones are declining, a man's hormones are declining, and the very thing that brought them together is evaporating. So can you just describe what's going on for men and how this relates to women and what's going on for them.
We need to look at testosterone in men the same way we look at estrogen in women. Both men and women contribute to the quality and the health of a marriage. Women lose estrogen and men lose testosterone. And we need to look at these main sex hormones just as they are, main sex hormones. When testosterone declines in men, and it does, just like it does in women, men's brains and bodies will respond. So it's not just about women, because it's about this time when women are experiencing this decline and this miserable experiences. The husband does too. And if he's not talking about it, that doesn't mean he's not experiencing it. Men experience testosterone decline in periandropause, stage 1 periandropause. Periandropause is just like perimenopause in women. It's when testosterone starts to decline in a man's 30s and it continues to decline, or they've never produced enough testosterone. So estrogen deficiency causes emotional dysregulation, loss of libido, and loss of bonding in women. But testosterone deficiency causes irritability, withdrawal, fatigue, low motivation, emotional disengagement, physical pain. Men get more severe physical pain when they're testosterone deficient, their muscles, their joints, and they tend to crash after supper time because they just get so fatigued later on in the day. So the two hormone deficient adults in a marriage can influence just the entire family. So when a man is deficient, he's grumpy, moody, irritable, nothing makes him happy, gaining weight, in pain, not sleeping, gaining the spare tire, belly fat, while a woman's brain is deteriorating due to estrogen deficiency, her mood swings, not wanting to be touched. And it's like, so how much fun do you think this household is to live with for these children? So I want to be clear that this is not a communication failure or a moral failure. It is a biological collision. When estrogen is restored in women and testosterone is restored in men, the relationship can finally be assessed honestly from two whole people. So many marriages improve dramatically. I mean, very quickly, because when women want to be touched and they want to be hugged and they want to be loved, and men feel strong and masculine and confident and have energy and they're not in pain, men and women can connect in this regard. And when men and women can have this emotional connection, this intimate connection, they can develop this sense of you and me against the world. And this impacts the entire family. So this, when men get their testosterone restored and women get their estrogen restored, this is really the most beautiful thing that these two people can do to restore their marriage and their family long term. Because this isn't short term I'm talking about. This is long term hormonal balance healing for the entire
Wow.
family and the future of their children. Because when men and women get their hormones fully restored, they get a good hard look at the impact hormones have on the brain and body.
Marie, it is just fascinating how hormone levels in both men and women can really steer a marriage.
Therapists, lawyers, doctors, everybody ignores estrogen. And to me, this is what the big lie is, the big problem, really the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. It's like women aren't crazy. I mean, and to be honest, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of everybody ignoring that the reason women aren't happy and they're difficult to live with is because they don't have enough estrogen. Women are judged cognitively, emotionally, and legally while women are compromised, and they shouldn't be. We should give women the estrogen they need so they can make healthy choices and they can create the healthy lives and families that they want. Estrogen therapy should be first line treatment for any woman. That should be the first thing every physician, every therapist, every medical professional should look at female hormone labs first. But, well, second, first they need to educate themselves on estrogen and where those labs should be. Then they should monitor those labs and then restore those hormones in the sweet spot so that women can choose whether they want to enter into a marriage or stay in one.
All right, Marie, this has been really rich information today. If a woman is listening and questioning her marriage right now, what do you want her to hear?
Do not decide your marriage or your life until you restore your estrogen. Your brain just isn't working well enough to make these major decisions. Estrogen, if you have enough of it, gives women the strength to stay or the strength to leave. If your marriage is in question and you suspect your hormones are impacting it, go to advancedhormonebalancing.com. Book a discovery session with one of our clinical hormone coaches, and let's see if one of our hormone balancing programs is a good fit for you. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, everybody in your life benefits when your hormones are balanced, including your marriage. I'm Marie Hoäg, and this is the MeNoPause Moxie podcast.